Good evening, gentlemen. I'll be touching on a very sensitive issue, force protection. In my earlier lecture, introduction, I'm in a capacity to give a lecture to senior command officers, me being a civilian. But force protection is something which has been consistently ignored from a system point of view. Force protection is something which we need to give the topmost priority. A commander's intelligence requirements in any scenario. When a commander is busy planning operations, there are feeds from the operations staff officer, from the end staff officer, from the entire staff unit, the staff sections. But what I feel that it is extremely important to note that counterintelligence, which is often relegated to the backbench, should factor prominently in planning. Of course, we have HUMINT, although in India I should not say that the HUMINT word is used in its exact sense. Over here we have the word intelligence loosely defined. Whenever we say something, the Liaosu unit or the field security unit or the counter-int unit, intelligence is used loosely. The word is used loosely. Intelligence is something which can be given different interpretations in different contexts. If you are speaking of platforms, then we can have various intelligence platforms. If you speak of disciplines, we have various intelligence disciplines. But the word platform, I had meant that how we project that particular intelligence from that particular platform. We might have an aerial surveillance platform, or we might have a human assets human assets, जैसे कि हो गए हमारे agents और जैसे हमारे also unit LU personnel. So they are projected from a particular unit to conduct land-based surveillance, land-based reconnaissance and surveillance, and coupled with basic int activities. I will never say that reconnaissance and surveillance is not purely intelligence-oriented activity. Recce and surveillance, they also give us information, and they might not be HUMINT. They might not be targeting a direct human source to get human information to classify it exactly as HUMINT. But recce and surveillance often give us information which can be interpreted as intelligence. But sometimes observation and surveillance and reconnaissance give us hard facts which need not be collated or need not be analyzed. We have snipers. These snipers, their main objective is to liquidate targets, exclusive targets, rather I should say. The targeting is very, very specific, a single target, so that targeting, that kinetic attack will render the opponent's I won't say combat ability, I should say the opponent's leadership ability, degrading the opponent's leadership ability. Supposing he targets the head, the lead convoy, where the CO is sitting behind the event screen. So This is something, but at the same time, the sniper can give us a valuable intelligence because it is very high, it is very powerful as a telescopic rifle. The sniper can observe certain things which our reconnaissance and surveillance teams may not be able to observe. So we see that the sniper in effect is also an intelligence asset, an indirect intelligence asset. So intelligence cannot be restricted only to end-trained soldiers. I'm not diverting away from the main topic, as I was saying, the platforms and the disciplines. Similarly, counterintelligence. I was saying about HUMINT in India. We don't have a specific definition of HUMINT in India. In fact, we don't often use the word HUMINT, although it's very important to know the distinction between HUMINT and other disciplines of intelligence. But it's more important to know the difference between HUMINT and counterintelligence. It's very, very important, because if we can precisely define the distinction between counterintelligence and HUMINT, then only can you understand the importance of counterintelligence with respect to HUMINT. Counterintelligence should not be relegated to the backbench. It should not be confined to rear operations. It should not be confined to only, there are various scenarios that we use counterintelligence, but यहाँ पे हम लोग के पास simply the only thing which we think is the basic tactic of offensive counterintelligence is that penetration and infiltration of a terrorist group. So this, of course, that gives us a real good positive intelligence, because counterintelligence often leads to positive intelligence, getting us, which may be useful to the commander. But counterintelligence, I will not totally say that it is not a form of intelligence, because it yields positive intelligence on multiple occasions. So it is an enabler of intelligence activity. It is an enabler. So if it is an enabler of intelligence activity, if we extrapolate this particular attribute, we will know much more about counterintelligence and the depth to which it can go, and it can be a real powerful tool in the hands of the commander. Counterintelligence and HUMINT, although sharing most of the time similar collection techniques, are not the same thing, in the sense that counterintelligence is not a subset of HUMINT. Mind you, I said subset of HUMINT. HUMINT is an intelligence discipline, whereas counterint is a multidiscipline function supporting HUMINT. It has a supportive role. We can say counterint support to force protection, counterint support to R&D protection, counterint support to the commander's say program for vulnerability analysis and criticality analysis, where the red teaming is taken into consideration. You should not confuse the information collection methods and operational intention. HUMINT is collecting information without the agent or the operative concerned with the intent of the collection, whereas counterintelligence is totally opposite. It is concerned with the intent of the collection. What is the intention behind the collection? What the commander wants to be done, and why it needs to be done, and what can be the opponent's intent, and how to counteract it. Counterintelligence goes a step further than HUMINT. In that sense, counterint is more powerful than HUMINT in certain aspects. The incorrect doctrinal terminology error between HUMINT and counterint will lead to a weakening of both. Which incorrect doctrinal terminology? This difference between the collection methods and operational intention. HUMINT is solely concerned with collection, not the purpose of the collection. Not the purpose of the collection of the information or the requirements which predicate this collection. Yes, the HUMINT collector is aware that the purpose of his collection efforts are geared to collecting information from designated human sources. using specific collection techniques. In this sense, the agent is conducting a pure collection effort, not concerned with what this information will be used for and what necessitated the collection in the first place. Human collection includes, please listen carefully, operations conducted using human collection techniques regardless, repeat, regardless of the ultimate use of that information. Human activities include a great variety of operations, analysis, liaison duties, and that is, and वो हमारे फौज में the people know them quite well. But Counter-Int, on the other hand, uses human sources too as a source of information, but goes few steps further, and that Counter-Int agent is aware of the intent of collection and aggressively, this word aggressively is very, very important, aggressively uses specific techniques to either neutralize, number one, or exploit the enemy intelligence activities using the gathered information. Neutralization or exploitation. Neutralization or exploitation. These two terms are very important. Neutralization or exploitation, which the human agent is not concerned with. Most of the techniques in a repository of the Counter-Int agent are similar to the human agent. It is this use of human skills, particularly investigation and source operation, that has created the confusion between HUMINT and CI. And since this confusion is there, both of them generally overlap, and since they overlap, there is no real distinction between HUMINT and CI, and then we do not use the terms HUMINT and CI specifically. We simply jump into the matter by saying that, okay, int activities and Counter-Int activities, no. CI is a multidisciplinary function with the purpose to detect, identify, deter, exploit, neutralize the enemy's collection efforts. It seeks to counter enemy intelligence geared towards terrorist, subversive, espionage, sabotage, or insurgent attacks on our forces and installations, and lend support to HUMINT. Lend support to HUMINT. Again, lend support to HUMINT in its activities, protect the intel cycle, and ensure force protection, a very important factor. These two factors, protecting the intelligence cycle and ensure force protection, these two factors of paramount importance, which is often, I won't say ignored here, which is often not realized or taken cognizance of. Protecting the intelligence cycle, a simple example I can tell you. A Counter-Int review of the installation will find out that there are certain personnel inside the installation who may have some affectation, some inclination towards the enemy, or maybe sympathetic towards to the enemy, or maybe, you may find out a certain, a few of the personnel who may have certain affiliation with the enemy. Now, this is something, insider threat, mind you. So, this insider threat is there. If insider threat is there, then any intelligence cycle where we are collecting information and where we are, collating it and processing it, it has chances that since it is being conducted within the pickings of the camp, it could happen that one of those people down there whom we have marked out using a Counter-Int review of the personnel, he might be a part of the int cycle, a part of the people handling the int information, and there it goes. That person passes information to the enemy. And so, in that way, Counter-Int, if it can mark out that person, and then we can isolate him and detain him and prosecute him, remove him from the int office, and then automatically it has protected the int cycle. There can be another example also, and that is when a source giving us information, a couple of sources with information, we conduct a Counter-Int review of the source, or vetting of the source using Counter-Int techniques. There are Counter-Int techniques to see the source is loyal or not loyal, and then we can like the HUMINT agent who is taking information from the source can be alerted, and again the Counter-Int cycle is protected. The int cycle is protected. And as for force protection, will come later. It's a very, very important part. Counter-Int plays an extremely important part in force protection, and that will come later in a later discourse. So, thus we find Counter-Int to be composed of several attributes: aggressive, never relenting, and protecting the other int discipline activities, for example, determining whether a source is a source who wants to wittingly give information or is the enemy plant. Human contributes to an all-source visualization of the battlefield. Mind you, please listen, please get this clear. This part is important. Human contributes to an all-source visualization of the battlefield, increases the situational awareness of the commander. Human is intelligence derived from persons, documents, a pure int activity, whereas counter-int is somewhat like the hand in darkness, exploring, detecting, getting a hold, moving ahead with all help that is available in an unknown enemy-specific darkness. Unknown enemy-specific darkness, the enemy lurking in the shadows, whose actions once discerned by that hand will lead to the latter's firm clasp on his neck. That means counter moves to the enemy domain in the unknown, explores, goes on exploring, the intent, penetration is there, infiltration is there, whatever be the case, finally getting the enemy intent. Finally, moving inside the decision-making capacity of the enemy commander, the decision-making cycle of the enemy commander. It is possible to penetrate the enemy commander's decision cycle, manipulate it, and shape it like the way you want it. There are methods called there are deceptive methods. There are other counter methods. The main part is to penetrate the enemy's decision-making cycle, and for that, HUMINT is not the tool. Counter-int is the tool. Once we can penetrate the decision-making cycle of the enemy commander or all the other enemy leadership, and if we can subvert the decision-making cycle, if we can manipulate the decision-making cycle as to our commander's likings, that is the crux of, like loosely we say, intelligence in India. That is the crux of counter-int. Once we shape his decisions as per the way we want it, we have a competitive advantage in the battle space, in the information warfare. And finally, the commander will do exactly what we him to do. And then we can maneuver our forces. I mean, the ultimate comes out of this entire activity in an operational sense, that our forces are maneuvered in such a manner that the enemy is defeated once and for all, and victory is attained. And if we find here that counter is extremely important, but counter should not stop. Counter activities, the agent should not stop. It should be aggressive, relentless, constant, and continuing. ऐसी बात नहीं होनी चाहिए that a counter agent will only move when he's given a task. The task हो गया है and he comes back. No, he should go forward and further and further and further without stopping. There is no stopping in counter-int. There is stopping in HUMINT, but not in counter-int. Hence, we must not tend to associate counter-int solely with the HUMINT collection, nor define HUMINT in terms of counter-int. Commanders should understand this. We must not associate CI solely with HUMINT collection, and neither we should define HUMINT in terms of CI. The exact distinction we must understand. Commanders should understand it should not be the prerogative of only intelligence personnel. Commanders, staff officers of operations, etc. functions should understand this intelligence issue clearly so as to synchronize ops well with int. Ops and int are inseparable. They are a part of the whole. ISR effort, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, should not be degraded by weaknesses in both HUMINT and CI as a result of this confusion, this distinction problem. CI and HUMINT are highly complementary, very true, but of opposing mindsets. I hope I've been clear to some extent about the importance of counter-int and how we see counter-int in context of HUMINT and how we see HUMINT in context of counter-int. Whether be the division in function or overall structure, HUMINT and CI are indispensable to thwart enemy activities, to conduct force protection in an optimal manner, to keep our forces combat ready, to deliver precision strikes, and to always keep the decision advantage in our favor, with the element of surprise for the enemy being put at the minimum. This element of surprise is the most important part. Surprise, the word surprise, the decisive factor in any battle, whether be it a tactical battle, an operational, or a strategic plan, or whatever it is. Both disciplines are time intensive. and inter-human interactions over prolonged periods have turned the tradecraft into a very specialized skill involving human perception, behavior, psychology, and other traits. SIGINT, IMINT, MESSENGE, HUMINT, and CI have in common human sources. They have common human sources, but the other disciplines they have in. I'm extremely sorry. I'm sorry. I just went way ahead. HUMINT and CI have in common human sources. SIGINT, IMINT, MESSENGE, HUMINT, these are more technical. The human element is there in case of HUMINT and CI. So CI human agents are susceptible to error, deception by the enemy. They are fraught with risks and psychological stress, including human vices, predicated by money and other factors which are usually the byproduct of information transactions, which we call in Latin quid pro quo. But it is exactly these problems which prompts intelligence professionals to come up with newer and newer tactics so as to minimize the negative factors. The resulting exploration and research in the field of HUMINT and CI leads to refined methodologies, TTPs, which have been found to be effective in many cases. One of them is me trying to bring in the Indian Army the tactical int capability. I'll touch that later. That will come later. The technical int platforms, the SIGINT, IMINT, MESSENGE, HUMINT, even these can be supported by HUMINT and CI. Any information coming from these sources can be verified by using HUMINT and counterintelligence. Again, it's the other way around. SIGINT, IMINT, MESSENGE, HUMINT, they will also corroborate HUMINT and CI information. I'm not saying that we totally rely on human sources, counter and HUMINT, and just exclude technical sources. But there are some situations, many situations, where, say, aerial surveillance is totally useless over a dense jungle, right? There's a line of sight problem. Again, in a urban insurgency, it's a city where a number of buildings are there. It's very difficult to find what's happening in an alley or in a lane using aerial surveillance. The line of sight problem. The buildings will block out the requirement of straight line. That visual capacity of the particular aerial sensor. So these places you have to put in your own men. Either it is the organic int unit of the company which I'll be creating to move inside and find what's going on, or the HUMINT or CI agents, whatever it is. The first step in improving the Army's ability to collect force protection intelligence is building appropriate doctrine that clarifies the role of Army intelligence and CI personnel. Make its information operations doctrine more complete by publishing, mind you, comprehensive CI doctrine. I have published my own book on this. It is available for you to see. It's on the website. I've attempted to write a doctrine on force protection, a separate on counter-int, and a separate on tactical int capability, and a totally separate book I've written on HUMINT. This doctrine explains the primary CI missions of collections, investigations, operations, and analysis and production. The Force Protection Doctrine. Doctrine guides the employment of military forces and shapes how military professionals think about the use of the military instrument of national power. Army doctrine details a basic understanding of the tactics, techniques, and procedures to be employed to support combat requirements. India historically lacked comprehensive CI doctrine. Counter-int doctrine, I don't think we have. We have manuals, SOPs, we have a lot of things. We have training manuals in MIT Pune, the courses are being taught. But is there a comprehensive doctrine where there are past experiences, failures, successes, future possibilities, areas which can be researched, areas which can be modified, is it modular, where we can plug in new techniques, we can take out old techniques? This lack of doctrine has resulted in confusion and hampered the ability of force commanders to use CI to improve force protection efforts. In fact, I should say that force commanders do not at all consider counter-int for force protection. Force protection efforts must be threat-driven. Vulnerabilities should be identified, the corresponding threats identified, and then protective measures are put in place. To this end, military intelligence and counter-int play a very important role. This should be the basis for the creation of comprehensive CI doctrine. If you have write a CI doctrine, then this part should be understood very clearly. Counter-Ind, I'll again give a summary, which should predicate the creation of a comprehensive CI doctrine, a basis. Counter-Ind is a systematic acquisition of information concerning espionage, sabotage, insurgency, and related foreign activities conducted for or on behalf of foreign nations, entities, organizations, or persons, and they are directed against or threaten our military interests. To this end, a variety of human sources, like walk-ins, casual sources, defectors, official sources, liaison contacts, recruited sources, are employed by CI elements. These human sources are employed by CI elements. So this similarity is there. CI collection and investigations lead to a repository of information on threats. Repository, and this repository can be written down in the form of doctrine. CI collections and investigations lead to a repository of information on threats. Thereafter, by queuing other INT disciplines and using all source analysis, a complete picture of the threat is obtained. Thus, we reach our main objective, the precise warning of hostile attack, and we also identify the probable targets of the attack and the time of attack. In a nutshell, CI, counter-Int usage of HUMINT, is the first line of defense. Let me repeat this line statement once more. Counter-Int usage of HUMINT is the first line of defense. Army force protection requires a separate force protection doctrine. Not only INT personnel will benefit from the doctrine directly, but also tactical commanders who must have a basic knowledge about force protection, so to understand requirements ought to be defined and handed over to INT and counter-INT personnel to adequately protect the force. In the case of the Uri attacks, when the battalion or whoever came in and taking the place of the outgoing battalion or the regiment, whatever it is, if there had been an organic incapability of both the outgoing and the ingoing forces, then the staff officer, if when in my organic int unit of the battalion, I'll keep a staff officer, mind you, the staff int officer would have briefed the incoming staff officer about the intelligence preparation of the battlefield, abhi kahan pe hai, kya threat hai, kya halat hai, kya nahi hai, the entire picture of the entire locality of the area of operations, so that the incoming unit would have been more careful, aur wo ghatna nahi hota. They would have known that these are the threat perceptions, these are threat perceptions in the area, the threat factors, these are the vulnerable areas inside the camp, and this thing wouldn't have happened had there been a battle. This was sort of battle handoff. I mean, information being passed on to the incoming unit about the present threat scenario over there. If this had been there and were properly, in a reportable format with the staff officer and handed over to the staff officer of the incoming unit of the organic unit का जो staff officer होता है of the incoming battalion, तो ये घटना नहीं होता. The commander's battlefield operating system at his disposal are fire support and maneuver, and here is where INT and counter-INT act as force multipliers. The INT and the CI battle operating system must be successfully integrated in the commander's battle operating system, so that his INT requirements or those priority INT requirements are successfully answered, giving ideally a perfect situational awareness about the battle space so as to conduct operations successfully. ये जो point है situational awareness, situational development, it's so important that I have no words to, there are no words to totally explain the importance. ये इतना important है that the more and more I speak about it, there will be more and more left to explain about it. The commander focuses on the INT system by clearly designating its priority INT requirements, targeting requirements and priorities. But before he does that, he must have a complete situational awareness about the battle space, what is to be known, what is unknown there, jiske baare mein janna hai. See, there's one thing. One thing is like there's passive intelligence. We observe something happening at the border and then we send an INT teams to know what is happening. That I will not say active intelligence. Active intelligence is something that we do not notice happening at all. We are not aware of anything. हाँ चलो सब शांति है, सब कुछ ठीक ठाक है, but something is happening there. It is back in our minds. Nothing can be observed, but something is happening somewhere. We have no idea about it, and that is where the counter-int agent, who is relentlessly and aggressively working ahead, he is in a position to know what is happening, which we don't know is happening. A commander's situational awareness is not what is being observed. Suddenly he observes something and then he puts his int people there. Situational awareness and situational understanding should have that factor penetrating the enemy commander's decision cycle even in peacetime. The commander focuses on the int system by clearly designating its priority int requirements after the situational development situational awareness part. His targeting requirements, his priorities. Int is a continuous process which keeps these operations tied to the commander's critical decisions and concept of operations. CI collection, analysis, and dissemination, like other int, have to meet the commander's time requirements to have any use in historical. I understand, of course, it's true. It's very true. But CI, although it has to meet the commander's time requirements, CI should work in the background. It's not that the commander gives the order and CI should put in action. CI should always, counter-int activity should always happen. Even peacetime, जब वो पूरा आपका camp बंद पड़ा हुआ है, the perimeter gates are closed, the guards are there, the camp is isolated. Now we don't know what's happening outside the camp, in the civil areas, because we're interested. We are inside Fort William, we stay inside Fort William. We are interested in what's happening in Khidirpur, or Iqbalpur, or in Mitya Bhuj, or in Wadganj. But we never know. But there may be people down there planning against us. If our counter agents were there in civis, moving around the public, in the tea shops and everything, then we can expand our, the sheath of protection from Fort William perimeter, or the four gates and the moat and everything, and extend it further to certain, say, a concentric. This is called concentric rings methodology, where you secure the inside of Fort William, and then we secure one circle outside Fort William going up to, say, Khidirpur, then another circle outside Fort William going up to, say, beyond Fancy Market, and then another circle going beyond that, so that in effect, say, around 3 to 5 kilometers beyond Fort William, in a circular manner, I have secured using int assets, so that कोई भी घटना वहाँ पे घट गया, say, these int assets will be liaising with the police, with sources and everything, or any newcomers down there, any incidents which might have second order effects or third order effects on the army, inside Fort William or on Fort William, or हो सकता है that some arrests have been made of some people with RDX and everything. So it's a force protection problem. Many other things can come out with this counter agents mingle with the population down there in this concentric rings methodology. So we have increased the sheath of protection, not at the perimeter of the Fort William, the gates of Fort William, but beyond that, 4 to 5 kilometers away. And this same thing can be maintained in Kashmir, in other areas, where then we can be secure. We can be at least, okay, चलो भैया ठीक है, यहाँ से 4 से 5 किलोमीटर जो सर्कल है पूरा कैंप के चारों तरफ में, we are secure at least. Enemy people, their counter-int and the int people, these people need to be identified. And again, counter-int is important. We need to know, who are this particular specific threats: enemy units, terrorist groups, insurgent groups, enemy special forces, criminal enterprises in collusion with these forces, cyber criminals in collusion with these forces, radical elements, that part of the local populace which supports the enemy ideals, environmental, chemical, health, radiological, biological hazards, weaponry systems of the enemy units, terrorists, insurgents, and criminal enterprises. Now, this is the threat list. Force protection doctrine should compel the creation of service capabilities to collect, receive, evaluate, analyze, and disseminate all information on terrorist activity, strength, capabilities, organization, intent, past history, current activities in the area in question or areas of interest, and indicators of imminent attack, and put them in the doctrine book, in the doctrine manual. This is the current part. And again, the historical part, क्या क्या हुआ है for the past, क्या क्या operations हुए थे, क्या नहीं हुआ है, what all happened, that should also be entered. So we need to create a doctrine, we need to have something at our hands to know what has happened, what is happening, and what can happen. We can categorize the threats based on intent. This can be incorporated in the force protection doctrine. Hence, you can allocate human resources in an appropriate manner without any duplication or wastage. Human resources are usually, the activities, what do you call it, deconflict, हम लोग कहते हैं deconfliction. We usually there are duplication of efforts. Usually are wasting human resources on something, which are totally useless for satisfying our end requirements. Again, here another chapter comes in which I'll explain later, collection and requirements management. There is something different that I will not touch right now. There is totally a human chapter, a human something, so that we can precisely define our requirements so human sources or other end sources are not wasted. What I was saying that categorizing the threats based on intent. Say type 1. Type 1 can be criminal activity geared towards army bases. Criminal activity, not terrorist activity. Type 2 can be penetrative reconnaissance and sabotage operations, terrorist and insurgent attacks. And Type 3 can be major land, amphibious, air and missile attacks. Type 1, 2, 3 threats can be adequately determined by the employment of counter-assets which use, please understand carefully, counter-assets which use human sources to collect force protection information and conduct investigations, security surveys, threat and vulnerability assessments. Conducting investigations, security surveys, threat and vulnerability assessments, these are counter activities using human sources, mind you. Casual sources, official sources, liaison contacts, and recruited sources comprise the source database of the CIA repository. All source int is also used for all the threats, particularly type 4. These include human, SIGINT, MESSENT, IMINT, ELINT, OSINT, type 3. Fusion of all information from multidisciplinary int platforms with data from national level int agency result in a far better situational understanding of the commander. And again, ISR synchronization is a must if we have to have a robust advanced warning system to avoid the element of surprise. Again, I'll say, all this boils to one simple thing, but a very, very powerful concept. Counter-int usage of HUMINT is the first line of defense. Counter-int and HUMINT are separate, distinct, I've clarified before. But again, counter-int and HUMINT are very deeply interrelated in the sense that counter-int usage of HUMINT, I repeat, is the first line of defense. Counter-int usage of human sources and many other factors. We can make certain observations after studying force protection failures from around the globe. HUMINT was not given priority in force protection efforts. Neither the HUMINT support was precise, effective, and tailored to the commander's needs. Instead, standard operating procedures detailing standard and routine defensive methods and access control were implemented. HUMINT's capability in predicting on how, where, and when a terrorist attack might take place was ignored. HUMINT can predict the specific target, time, and nature of attacks. I was still so far focusing on counter-int, but I was also say something about HUMINT, how HUMINT helps in force protection efforts. Secondly, lack of organic int capability at tactical level. This particular project, Army 22, which I have envisioned, on which I am working. The installations or the bases which were attacked did not have a dedicated, organic and focused force protection intelligence analytical capability. Force protection intelligence is separate. I'll touch that on in a later discourse. Plus, there is a weakness in both collection and analysis of force protection intelligence. If intelligence capability can be pushed down to company platoon level, the soldiers being augmented with, say, trained riflemen, forming an organic int unit, trained in basic human and CI techniques, train the basics like tactical question and interrogation, which are very simple to learn and do not require int background. Then instead of sending requests for information to high headquarters, the tactical capability to investigate, gather information, analyze, it would have been achieved. The always top-down int flow could have been avoided, the int pyramid inverted, and a four-way flow implemented with interaction between the tactical units and higher headquarters, adjacent company headquarters, and int elements. Hence, there is a desperate need for military units operating in high-threat environments to possess organic int collection, analysis, and investigative capabilities at boot level. Third point. In all these cases of post-protection failures, whether it be globally, in other countries or in India, military intelligence lacked the necessary impetus to devote time, effort, and resources for long-term and mid-term terrorist threat intelligence collection analysis. Terrorist threat int collection analysis, such as trends, intentions, and capabilities of terrorists. Had we had a force protection doctrine, these things would have been there in the doctrine. We would have put them down in the past and we could have used them for the future, but we didn't have them. National intelligence agencies were larger in operational and administrative size and were given priority rather than the MI in collecting intelligence, but national agencies cater to a wide range of requests for information apart from terrorist threat to forces, whereas MI can exclusively set up collection taskings of force protection intelligence given adequate weightage, administrative and financial aid and clearance by the government. This was absent. Number 4. The installation question fell prey to terrorist attacks because the intelligence arrangement at command level in high headquarters or the installation headquarters itself was focused on outward attacks like tactical missions or defensive postures dictated by air threat and totally ignored the need for a HUMINT or CI-based int collection for ground defense of the installation, personal information and communication facilities. All was outward, they were inward. No content review of the installation. कहाँ पे क्या हम लोग का vulnerable points है, critical points है, उनको protection देना है inside this. No, we are more concerned with tactical operations outside the camp. We are more concerned with the air threat. To execute a CI operation successfully, liaison is needed with other civil agencies and with the agencies of the three services. To effectively build up a liaison, time is required. It cannot be achieved overnight. In case of counterinsurgency operations, liaison is much needed with the local administration's int branch and the police, as they are the ones who know the local area, population, criminal elements and insurgency profile in terms of attack history, police records of personalities, and elements who have been apprehended and surrendered. The latter can be put to use by counterinsurgents, those who have been apprehended and surrendered. The counterinsurgents can put them as pseudo-insurgents to penetrate the adversary setup. Mind you, this has happened in Rhodesia. In Rhodesia, the people who were captured, they were converted by the counterinsurgents into pseudo-insurgents, and they penetrated their own parent insurgents groups and they gave the counterinsurgents information. And this is a fantastic ploy. Liaison relationships are an investment in the future, and the return on these investments is directly proportional to time and effort expended on developing and maintaining the relationship. We can transfer, I can suggest something. We can transfer 2 to 3 personnel from the proper MI to the CI unit, as CI units are generally understaffed compared to standard HUMINT units. Although in India, again, I'm using the word HUMINT. Say the LU units, whatever it is, and the liaison units. Even transferring 3% personnel can significantly raise the strength of all the units overall. Thus, with this transfer, the command's human assets get a boost, and coupled with CI augmentation, the human teams can handle all 3 types of threats, 1, 2, and 3. Simply transferring will not suffice. Proper training and countering needs to be given. But this won't be a problem, as the MI soldier already has basic int training and acumen. Yes, they need to be granted clearance to access compartmentalized information, and hence prior to transfer, the soldiers need to undergo a thorough counter-int investigation process as to their suitability. I'll end this with a note. Thereafter, the further discourses I'll be handling counter-int force protection, unit protection, and the attack the network concept which I've created there are more, much more, and then the tactical incapability. But I'll end this particular discourse with this paragraph. The counter-int effort focuses on the overall hostile int collection, sabotage, terrorist, and subversive threat. The counter-int effort is also sufficiently flexible to adapt to the geographical environment, attitudes of the indigenous population, mission of the supported command, and changing emphasis by hostile intelligence, sabotage, terrorist, and subversive organizations. In a nutshell, the counter-int agent is capable to adapt to any enemy environment, which the pure int breed cannot. The human guy cannot. Tactical human is something different. I'll test later. A combination of human and countering assets is something different. That is something which is Americans have created a modular setup where both have been combined in one particular platform. But it's something different. That I will test later. So again, I'll say counter-int is extremely important. It is not to be confined only for real operations in times of war or in times of peace, just relegated to the back bench. It is something which should always be operating, which should always be moving ahead, forging ahead, relentlessly, aggressively, be it peacetime, be it times of war, or be it times of any crisis. Along the entire conflict spectrum, it should go on. Like I said, the darkness, the hand in the darkness, going ahead and ahead, exploring and exploring, trying to reach the enemy's neck. So that's the point. Counter-int should be used to penetrate the commander's decision cycle, aided by HUMINT. Thank you.